Hello, hello. Join me as I do some late night crafting, making wreaths, similar to that one. If you're coming in, thank you for joining. Just doing some late night crafting, working on wreaths, particular Valentine's Day wreaths. So thank you for joining and checking out this live. Thanks for joining. Working on wreaths tonight. Couldn't sleep, so here we are. Probably gonna make one similar to this one. If you have any questions, let me know. Just so everyone knows, I'm just making some wreaths. Tonight's wreath is going to be a Valentine's wreath. So I'll be incorporating some different ribbons that I have. I also will be adding this sign that I made as well to our wreath. So it'll be similar to this one, just a little bit different with the different signs. So if anyone's curious, I'm using a different base than I normally would use, but it worked out for that one, so we're going to use it again for this one. Hopefully I don't run out of mesh. So, for all of you who are not familiar, my name is Anitra, and I have a small little business, From Me to You Designs, where I make different wreaths and other home decor. Sometimes I make my own signs, or I may make door signs, things like that. And I sell them on my Etsy shop. So I do have an Etsy that's called From Me to You Designs AZ, because I'm here in Arizona. So I was going to come on yesterday, but I had a migraine. So, here we are again tonight. So if you're curious, I'm just using I think this one is a 16-inch base. So I'm just taking it around. Let me turn my camera just a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing. So normally I just take it around and I'll start, and this is 21-inch mesh. If you want to make a wreath for yourself, normally I will order my mesh But you can also get mesh from Michael's, places like that. Only thing about Michael's is if you're getting it from there, you're probably gonna pay probably about $11 or so if you're getting it from Michael's, and that's for a 21-inch mesh. And you can probably get even with if you're getting it from Michael's, and that's for a 21-inch mesh, and you can probably get even with around this as well. And so my poofs are around this as well. And so my poofs are I do a continuous go through as well when I'm doing this also. So I don't stop. A lot of people will go through, they'll cut once they do the top ring of mesh, then they'll cut and do the bottom ring, but I don't do that. I'll go and do my top ring, and then usually once I get back to where I started, then I'll just pull some and bring it down to start the next loop. And so then I'll just keep going through as I'm doing it. And so I just keep going around until I have all my loops in. If anyone has any questions, you can ask me any questions about the process. Normally after I've gone through this, then I'll just kind of fluff out. And then we'll start adding ribbon and all of that good stuff to it as well. Again, if you've just joined, welcome. I'm just going through and making a wreath, a Valentine's Day wreath. One that'll be similar to the one that's kind of behind me. Looks like I just might make it without running out of mesh, which is a good thing, because I don't want to have to get up and get more mesh. So if you are interested in making wreaths, you can get locally, you can probably get wreath forms from a craft store, again like Michael's or Joann's. Hobby Lobby has some. You may be able to find the colored forms, like this red one, or a lot of times you'll find green. But you can also shop at places like online, like Craft Outlet. That's probably the best option to get a wreath form for yourself. And those will usually have the tinsel, what we call the tinsel ties, already on them. If you get one from the Dollar Tree, then you would just add them in different spots on your wreath form, just around the top and then around the bottom loops of your wreath form. So usually you can probably do 7 and 9, 7 at the top, 9 at the bottom, or you can do a 8 at the top and maybe 9 at the bottom, or 10 at the bottom. Just kind of space them out, probably like every 5 inches when you put them on both levels. So this part usually goes fairly quickly once I get my deco mesh on there. And then I'll just cut once I'm done at the bottom. Then I'll just cut, and then I'm done with that. And then once I'm done with that, it's just a matter of tucking this excess in, and then just going through the process of kind of fluffing out the deco mesh. So I'll just go around each one, and I want to just kind of fluff them out and poof it up. My ribbon's getting in the way. So I'm just going to fluff all around it and puff it out. And then wherever I have the pieces where I started and where I ended, those will kind of just get tucked underneath. So it's just kind of fluffing it out. So for anyone that's just joined, thank you for joining. Just spend some late night working, making another wreath. I work during the day, so a lot of times I don't get to make wreaths until late at night. So I'm up late at night making wreaths. Not sleepy right now, so might as well. So for this one, this is a Valentine's Day wreath. I'm just going to add the sign that I made. It's kind of similar to this one that I have. I just have a different type of sign that the sign is still the same, but I'm going to add a heart. It's kind of like a wreath on top of a wreath. So a heart wreath on top of this wreath base as well when I go through and do it. So it's like a double wreath. So right now I'm just kind of poofing out the mesh, and this is called deco mesh that I'm adding to it, and just kind of poofing out and fluffing it out. I think one of my ties is loose. and just fluffing it up. And so once you do that, you kind of get this. Looks a little wobbly, but that's usually the starting spot. Next, I usually add, so I have two types of 10-inch mesh that I'm going to put on here. I have this one. It's a 10-inch mesh, so 10 inches wide, and I usually cut each piece about 20 inches because then I'm going to roll and gather it, and it will go into each one of the ties. So I have this one, and I have this one. So we're going to use these two. This is kind of it's hard to tell. Maybe if I keep it wrapped up, you can kind of see it. It's a ombre of red, pink, and white going through it. And so I'm going to add this one, and then of course we have the red and white. And so I kind of alternate each one of those throughout here. And so we'll use that, and of course we'll follow it up with 4 different types of ribbon. I have this one that we're going to use. I have this red and white ribbon. And then I'm going to use this one. So this is a pink, red, and white hearts on kind of like a beige natural background. So I use this one. This is a 1.5. I cut these about 14 inches. And then I have this red and white heart one. This is about 14 inches. So each one is, I cut 14 inches. And then making sure that I dovetail the ends of those. And that's just simply when we dovetail, you would just fold each piece and with your scissors, cut at an angle to get the dovetail. So we'll be adding those, and then I have one more. We'll also add this color to it, and so all of these are usually alternated throughout the whole thing. So yeah. So normally when this is the next part of it, it's just kind of me going through and rolling each piece of my 10-inch mesh. And so it's a matter of just getting on, and part of that is you want to kind of make sure, because mesh sticks, as you can see it's sticking, and it frays too. So it's good to kind of roll it under. And this is where I kind of do my little clip method. And then I'll roll the other side. And I only roll it part way, because then I'm just going to gather up my mesh, take my little clip off. And then start adding it to my rings. Turn it the opposite direction once I roll it, and add it in there. So for this one, I'm going to end up with, I think I have 16 ties. So we'll go through, and I'll be alternating between each one and adding it in there. So if you have any questions, just put it in the chat and I'll respond to it. once I get my little roll, it pretty much just looks like this. And each one gets added in into my wreath base. And so I have all my little cuts laying on the floor, and as you can see, deco mesh is very sticky. So it'll stick to everything. It'll stick to each other like right now. I usually have my upholstery staple. So normally, thanks for asking, how long does it normally take me to make a wreath? Once you start adding things, it probably can take you about an hour to a couple of hours. Depends on how much stuff you're actually adding to your wreath. Sometimes it takes me longer when I don't plan a wreath out. I just do it and see what I end up with. So this one is kind of planned because I've cut everything ahead of time. So I know what I'm actually going to do unless something else happens and yeah, something doesn't work out. But considering that I already cut everything ahead of time, I have my ribbon cut ahead of time, which is helpful. Then it doesn't take as long. Now I do have some wreaths where they take a little bit longer just because the intricacy of the wreath is, you know, I want to add a lot more detail. So I have mannequin head wreaths. And of course, from start to finish of making the attachment mannequin heads, I actually have to paint those. I have to prep the heads, paint the heads, and then you're actually kind of giving the mannequins as much as you can facial features, painting the eyes to make them look kind of realistic. If it's a woman, then you're giving her makeup. So that actually may take a couple of days just to go through the drying process of when I put Mod Podge on them and then let that set, and then I use kind of white gesso when I paint the mannequin heads as well. That's kind of a primer if you're painting on a canvas, so I actually use it on the mannequins to prime the heads so that it comes out as smooth as possible. That's drying time, then you paint it, that's drying time, adding facial features, makeup, that's drying time, and then kind of sealing them and letting that dry. And that's just for the head that goes on the wreath base. Then you have to do the wreath. So it can take a little while when you're with some of these. For this one, like I said, I prepped already. I even already made my bow that's going to go on this particular wreath. So I'm prepared. Which about 60% of the time I'm not prepared. I'm just going along as I do things. And then seeing what I come up with. So if anyone has any more other questions, I mean, don't hesitate to ask them. Usually I'm sitting in silence doing this, in the middle of the night when I can't sleep. It's kind of like therapy as well. So as you see, you roll, and you come out like this, but then when I put it in, I'm going to turn it like this and place it in. And once I do that, it kind of puffs up in the base. And part of that is just so that all of this part is just kind of down, instead of, you could turn it like this, but I kind of like it like that. That makes sure that all of this that kind of likes to come out and snag loose is actually turned down, so that it's not coming apart and raveling as much. So this is kind of like the starting part. This right here probably takes maybe the longest to me of all of it. Unless I'm gluing something in, then that's going to take longer. So thank you to everyone that's joined and that's liking. Again, if you have questions, just ask me. I'll be more than happy to answer. One thing about doing this is when I'm going through, like, I'll end up, so if you're going through and you want to make sure that you're getting an even number of different alternating colors through here, you may want to have more ties at the top. Again, I didn't put the ties. I bought this with the ties already on it. But if you, let's say you were making it for yourself and you got like a Dollar Tree one and you had to put the ties on yourself. So if you wanted that alternating, I think this has like 7 at the top and 9 at the bottom. So you probably want to have an even number so that you could have an even number of one color, an even number of the other color. It's going to get a little bit harder to do it at the bottom just because of ring spacing. And so, like I'm about to have right now, you're probably going to have like the same color as I alternate. So I'll have 2 that are the red and white that are next to each other. And that's fine, because the way I turn it, this will probably be where a bow may actually go, so it kind of offsets it for me. It's unavoidable to have 2 things that kind of go together when you're adding them to the bottom ring. So kind of just go with it. Same thing that happened when I put on the ribbon as well. I'll have 2 that kind of have the same ribbon next to it. anyone that's joined, again, thank you for joining as I do my late night wreath making. So now I'm going to go to the bottom ring. Sometimes I do have to kind of lift it up just to get my mesh on there. And one thing about this is once I put the deco in, the red in, and I tie that off, I don't untie it in order to put my next mesh in. I just usually will just put it on top of it, so it'll just be an extra tie instead of taking it loose. What will probably happen, and I've only started doing this lately just because I like the look of it, is normally once I put my ribbon in, I'll end up just kind of pulling the tie through so that it lifts the ribbon up. Yes, I do make more than wreaths. I also make door signs. I make door signs. I recently kind of played around and tested with taking a diva wreath and putting it on a African print wrapped canvas. So you can see that in my, if you go to my bio, then you can access the link to my website, and I have one listed on there, and I'll be making more of those where I take the diva wreath form, paint the face out, add the deco mesh for the hair, and sometimes I use African fabric to wrap around, or I think for one that I have listed, I use the African print ribbon. And so then I'm taking that and putting it to a canvas, and the canvas is wrapped in African print fabric. So it's a 16 by 20 canvas with the diva wreath on top of it, and then you can actually hang that on your wall, put inspirational quotes on there as well. You can hang it on your wall. You can get it either without a floating frame, or you can get it with a floating frame. That way you can actually put it hanging on the wall. It's already framed and everything for you. I also will make candle holders as well, and so then the candle holders will have like the floral design around them. So I'll make those as well. So then I make wreaths for different holidays. Right now I'm just doing a few more Valentine's Day wreaths. Then I have Mardi Gras and Black History as well that are coming up on the shop too. So lots of different things. Of course, when I'm not making wreaths for my shop, then sometimes I make little shirts. But I don't sell those. At least not yet. Maybe in the future. joined, thank you for joining, and thank you for the likes. If you've just joined, then I'm just making wreaths. I'm making a Valentine Day wreath to post on my website. So I'm up. Might as well make a wreath while I'm doing it, while I'm up. So So as you can probably tell, this is the part, one of the parts, that probably goes the longest of all the parts. This takes a little more time, just getting each crumpled, rolled. So we only have a few more left, so I'm getting closer to finishing this segment. So Deco Mesh wreaths aren't actually the only wreaths. I do also, and I don't have one up right now, I think I've taken them all back, but I do also just make floral wreaths. So wreaths that are on like a grapevine base, I'll make those too. Of course, that requires me to turn on my glue pot for that, so I have extra mesh on my floor, so they're all like sticking together. And I think I put extra too, so. If you've joined, don't forget to like, and if you like the content that I have, so we'll be going live more, doing more wreath making, at least once or twice a week, more so probably on the weekend. I work during the weekday, during the daytime. Work for a pharmaceutical company, so I work during the daytime, so a lot of times during a weekday I don't get to do this until nighttime. So it'll probably be going live on the weekends and once during the week. be going live more often, showing this process, and hopefully inspire someone to kind of want to try their hand at making maybe their own wreaths as well. Deco mesh wreaths are an easy place to start in a way. Okay, and this is our last ruffle before we move to ribbon. So once you get all your ruffles on there, then you have this, which is to me the making of a wonderful wreath. It's not done yet. Oh, wait a minute, I still have one more. How did I miss that? Am I self-taught? Somewhat. Somewhat, yeah. I kind of, and also, you know, just like following other wreath makers as well. Early on, when I kind of start going through and looking at, you know, how to do the process, because my very first wreath probably wasn't that great. But yeah, and then taking a cue from, I like to decorate Christmas trees. I do that a lot around Christmas time. So decorating Christmas trees, and then taking cues from that as well and putting it into wreath making. So yeah, I mean, if you're interested in looking at it, the great way, you know, to kind of get ideas and see how different things are done is by watching other wreath makers and just seeing their process and how they do things as well. It'll give you ideas and help you through the process. So now that we have all the ruffles on, the next step in this is adding your ribbon, and so for me that's the next process that I do. Now if I was making a grapevine wreath where I add flowers to the grapevine base, it's kind of like a twig vase, then usually with those, the first thing I start with, before I actually just start hot gluing in my flowers, normally with those I'm going to start with my bow. If I'm putting a bow on there, I'll start with a bow that I put in on it, and then I build my flowers around it, or if I put on a sign, then I kind of the bow and the sign, and so then I know where I'm putting my flowers as well. Some people will start with their flowers and then put in the bow, but I, you know, kind of like to have an idea before I just start sticking my flowers in. That's just me, but everyone's a little bit different. But for this, now I have my ribbon tails, and like I say, each one of these I cut to 14 inches, and then once I do that, then I dovetail and then cut on an angle so that I get the dovetail with this. And so with this one, I'll be pairing these two. So I always pair two together to get my ribbon tails for each tie. So we'll be pairing these two together, and then these two together, and so we'll alternate each one of these. And so since I have them cut, normally I'll just kind of, you can either individually put the two together. You always want to take them, put them together, and then kind of fold them, and then I'll put the two folds together. And then once you do that, I can take it apart, and then where it's folded, I'll pinch it in the middle. And now I have that, and it will go start here. It'll go in the middle, and again, I don't untie, I just kind of stick it in there and just keep going. And then just kind of spread them out, kind of in the opposite. Again, all of it's going to want to stick to the deco mesh because that's just kind of how deco mesh goes. And once you stick that in there, it'll kind of look like that. And so alternate the two all the way around. A lot of times I'll just do like this, just kind of put them together. Fold it in half. Pinch it through. And then go on to my next one. And adding it around. So it's the same thing. I think the only difference here is when I'm putting it in there. If you're going around and doing it, there are times when I kind of just do it, splay them out like that, and then just making sure that if I take the 1.5 and do this, then on the other side, I kind of do the opposite of that. Sometimes people will say if you have your wreath in front of you, just kind of pull the tails towards you. You can do that as well. So. And honestly, if you're like making a wreath and maybe it's your first time making one, if all you did was did this portion of it, of doing your deco mesh and putting in your 10-inch ruffles around it and adding just the tails, even that on its own makes for a pretty wreath. And I turn this around depending on your ribbon. If your ribbon has something on it, so like this one has XOs, you can't see it right now, I'll show you on the next one, but it has XOs on it, but the hearts in one of the O's is pointing a certain way. So a lot of times I want to make sure that when I put it in there that, I look at the direction of things as well. Is it really a big deal? No, not really, but for me it is. So what I was saying is, so I can tell kind of the up and down of the ribbon, and it's really because of how the hearts are in this O. So I know that this is kind of like right side up instead of right side down. So I keep that in mind. When I'm putting my ribbon in, I try to keep that in mind. So when I'm facing it in front of me, I'm just kind of making sure everything is kind of up the way that it should be before I fold it. That can get tricky when you are doing your ribbon, especially if your ribbon has words on it. Because a lot of times when you start putting the ribbon together, doing your loops. If you're using like a bow maker or anything like that, then the words come out upside down. You may want the words to actually be shown, because that's probably what you bought it for. So this is like the late night slow jam session of wreath making. If you just joined, thank you for joining. If you have any questions, just put them in the chat. I am just making a Valentine's Day wreath that I'll post later on the shop. It's kind of the late night wreath session. So at this point we've added the deco mesh, the 21 inch, which is the red, which is kind of the base of the wreath. Added that all around, and then 10-inch ruffles that were cut to 20 inches. So it's 10 inches wide, and I cut each strip 20 inches, roll it, and then add it to each tie. If you're joining and you have a question, just put it in the chat. this is what it looks like so far. You still have a few more to put on. But you can kind of see at this point how it starts to take shape. If you're joining, thank you for joining. Don't forget to hit like. You can share this as well. And for a link to my shop, you can access that in my bio. And if you're interested in what I'm doing, which I'm all about wreath making, home decor, crafting, all of that type of stuff. So that's pretty much what I do on here. If that interests you, you can always follow my channel. And you'll get to see more of my crafting and wreath making. Like I have more than I knew some was up. I think I lost a ribbon tail. Yeah, there we go. coming down to the last ribbon tail. That will add to this. If you've joined and you have questions, well, thank you for joining. If you have questions, then don't hesitate to put them in the comments, and I'll answer them. Otherwise, you can enjoy the comfort, soothing stylings of wreath making. So we have all the ruffles on, all the ribbon tails on. And so now comes for adding your embellishments to your wreath. So for this one, of course, I'll add this bow. But I'm also going to be adding this sign. So if you go to my channel, and if you go to my list of videos, you'll kind of see where I made this sign. So I actually made two of these. The other one is actually on this wreath here. And so I made two of these. And so similar to that one, we'll have this one that'll go on here. And so this is kind of like a wreath on top of a wreath. So it's a 2 for 1. You got a wreath on top of a wreath. Because honestly, you could take this and hang it up as well, just even on its own. So this one is kind of the heart frame wrapped in yarn, and then I've added ribbon tails to each one to just kind of interspace throughout with the ribbon tails. And then I added a sign. So this is a custom sign. So this is a wood, just a wood cutout of a heart. And so for this one, I actually gel stained my sign. So this wood heart is gel stain, and for my gel stain, I used unicorn spit, that they call it. And the ones that I used, I actually have them right here. So I use what I call unicorn spit to actually stain the sign myself. I think this is this color is called like Starling Sasha, and then Dolly Firebird. And they actually have glitter in the stain with them. The gel stain is non-toxic. They're water-based. I actually like using these. They're fast drying. They actually have a smell. These actually smell like lemongrass. I think they have one that kind of smells like lavender, I think. And so it's just merely me adding it to it. Sometimes I let it sit on a little bit, and then I can wipe it off. And it just puts the stain on the wood. So I actually mix these two, quite easy to do, just add a little bit, and then just kind of use a paintbrush and let it go through as well. Sometimes I do it a little heavy, and I'll let it sit in there for a little while before I actually wipe it off. And so that's how I got the coloring for that sign, is with the gel stain, and then heat pressed my words. So my words are actually heat pressed on here. So and then add my embellishments, and this is my sign on top of a heart wreath frame, which is kind of like a wreath in itself. And this is going to actually go on top of our wreath base, similar to this one. So the next thing to do here is I do need to I need to add kind of like a backing for these, for this, so that I can actually attach it to my frame. So this is where I kind of have to look at it to know exactly where I want it to go, so that I can put my actual attachments on here. So for this, I think it's going to end up going right here, maybe. Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to put it. So we'll end up putting it right there, and then so I kind of have an idea of where I'm going to put this now. So one thing I will do is, no, you can't use it. You come. So one thing I will do is, oh, you good. So one thing I am going to do is, I think I am going to, so I mentioned sometimes I will take my ties, so like these ties, look at my son, look at my baby. Anyway, sometimes I will take these ties, and because I kind of like it to sit up, so if you're looking at it, you know, it's kind of, sometimes it's a little low. I like them to sit up a little bit. I like the tails to kind of sit up, and you'll see the difference. So I'll take my ties and just kind of run it through the back of it, and just tie it off towards the top, so I get a little lift. I get a little lift in the tails, so they're at least on the lower row, so it's lifted up some and not hanging so low. And so you kind of see the difference between this one that I just did, which is sitting a little higher, as opposed to these that are sitting lower. So that's the next thing, to just go through and do that with each one. And again, I'm just taking it through and just finding a spot on one of the rings, the ring at the top really, and tying it through. So as you can see, I was asked earlier about how long this process normally takes when I make a wreath. Well, now you see how long it usually takes. And this is actually gone a little bit faster, considering because I had everything already cut and ready to go. So yeah, when I don't have things cut and ready to go, and I'm just kind of winging it, or just thinking as I go through, or designing as I'm going through the process, then it may take longer, especially if I'm rethinking a design, because it may actually take a little bit longer. But you can start to see as I'm taking these up, how this is sitting lower, because I haven't pulled it up, as opposed to these are sitting higher. which kind of brings this up higher when it lays against your door. You're not seeing a bunch of gaps around the outside edge of it. And that was something I think I got from just watching. Sometimes people use pine bases for their wreaths, and so you do that quite a bit with the pine base. And I just started doing it with this wire form base. Now, one thing about if you're buying a wreath from me, if I have a sign in the middle, then I always close out the back of my wreath to finish the look for the wreath as well. Finishing touches are key to good customer service and client happiness and satisfaction. So I'm always looking for ways to make sure that whatever I'm putting out looks great. And if I need to, then as I'm going through, I'll just kind of straighten out the tails. They're going to kind of bunch a little bit, but the test is going to be how much my sign sticks to the deco mesh, because again, deco mesh is very sticky. I know some people don't like to make deco mesh wreaths. I mean, I think all wreaths are cute, but this is my son talking to me in the background. Oh, hush. So, but deco mesh sticks to everything when you're messing with it. So you have to be kind of gentle with it, because it does get sticky. So one thing is, for everything that's on the top, so like these, some people will leave them kind of like they are. I actually roll mine. Sometimes I may tuck them, but I'll roll them. It acts as a good anchor. So if I decide to add flowers to this, hot glue in flowers, then those little ties are kind of like the anchors for me hot gluing in. It sticks better for whatever you're hot gluing. It sticks better to the ties than just trying to hot glue it to the mesh. So something to keep in mind if you're making a wreath. So again, if you're joining, thank you for joining me. Thank you for all the likes. So on this channel I make wreaths, signs. You can probably also see maybe some candle holders, but a lot of wreaths, a lot of signs for sure. Yeah, and decorations. During Christmas time, which is now past, you'll probably see tree decorations, because I love Christmas and I love decorating trees, so that happens a lot. I will admit I have not taken down my Christmas trees, to my family's dismay, but one of them is actually going to become a Mardi Gras tree, because I celebrate Mardi Gras, since I'm from the home of Mardi Gras. So I don't live there right now, but yeah, it's still a thing. So I will do that, and you'll get to see that as well. and whatever else. Maybe some more candle holders, decorative candle holders. Sometimes I make wreath or flower boxes as well. So flower hat boxes. Okay. Okay, so now I've gone through and pulled it all around, so you can kind of see the difference that makes, instead of just kind of letting it sit back like that. The difference that it makes when I kind of pull it up. And so then the next thing is just going through, and I will actually just kind of roll and do this with a pen. I'm using a broken, well, it's not really broken, I'm just missing the head for the for a paintbrush. So I use that to roll. And so like I mentioned before, as you start to get closer, as you get closer to the finishing product, then honestly, if this was your first time making, if you made a wreath and this was the first time making it, just even following this, you could put it on your door just like this, and it would look great. If you've joined, thank you for joining. Just doing some late night wreath making. Which is a common occurrence for me. I work during the day, so sometimes I only get to do this at night, in the middle of the night. Usually when it's quiet and I have music in the background, so it makes for a relaxing time. And sometimes I even have company. So yeah. So like I say, if you even stopped at this point, it will look great. So now I have the anchor for my sign here. And I'm going to use just some wire to attach it. Some anchor points for it. Hopefully it's long enough, but we'll see. So now I just have to find kind of anchor points for this portion. And the one thing about this is my so I wrapped this with some yarn. It's kind of like a cotton candy colored pink, and it actually has like the tinsel in the yarn itself. She has a little decorative flair to things. I will say that, you know, the yarn is going to stick to the deco mesh because, of course, deco mesh likes to have everything stick to it. So I'm just kind of looking to see. So now I just have to kind of find anchor points in here. Somewhere in the middle of here is the actual I just have to find where I'm going to put my, actually, you know what, where I'm going to put the to put my wire through. And then I can run it through the other wreath base. And when I put it in here, you know, I kind of lightly put it in. I don't always, I won't tie it too tight, but I kind of lightly put it in just in case I need to move it around. Then I can do that. So I'm just finding anchor points in so that I can run it through and tie it off. So it's kind of like a wreath on top of a wreath. Sometimes this part can be a little tricky when you're going through. Okay, so now we have this portion on, and we'll add our bow next. And so when I make my bows, sometimes you can make these, I make them by hand. Other times I will actually make them using my bow maker. So like the Bodera bow maker, or easy bow maker. So I have an easy bow maker that if I don't make it by hand, then I just use the easy bow maker. And so again, you just kind of loop the bow through, or I tie the bow off, usually with the zip tie. Once I make the bow, kind of just tie it off with a zip tie, but I make sure that I add wire to it as well. And so the wire allows me to attach the bow to the wreath frame. So now I have the bow on there. I'll just do a little fluffing of my ribbon loops. You can kind of see what I'm doing. Fluffing of the ribbon loops, the tails as well. Kind of straighten all of that out. Make sure everything is straight. With this, a lot of times I'll just kind of roll. Because it's a little bit long, so I think I'm going to end up cutting this one just a little bit. And so this is what I was talking about when you're dovetailing, and so it's just a matter of, I'll stop it there. So I usually just gather the two pieces, the end, gather it together, and then you want to cut on the angle here, and that's how you end up dovetailing. Okay, and so wreath so far. And so with this one, I could easily just stop here with this, and it would be a finished wreath. With this one, I think I'm going to add, just kind of like I did with this one, so yeah, so like this one has a lot of other things in it. It has like the hearts in them, the roses. I even have like the heart ornaments in it, and other hearts and berries in it. So I'm probably, here, let me hold this one. Put it back up there. So with that one, I'm probably going to, can you get up there? Yeah, okay. So I'll probably end up doing the same thing with this one as well. Just adding some other stuff, and I'll kind of just turn it so that you see this one. Yeah. So just adding some other stuff to this one. Some hearts. Mr. Showcase person here. Adding some hearts to this one. Maybe some roses. Not a whole lot because, you know, you got a whole lot going on here. So I'll post this one if I add some more stuff to it. I'll actually kind of post a picture or something of it so that we didn't see the finished product from our live, and then it'll go in the shop next. So yeah, that's kind of the process, and you know, you see how long it kind of takes to go from finish to end, and this one is not fully done, but for the most part it is, with just a couple more embellishes to get the hearts, or to get all the hearts and all the other stuff in there. Those would actually be glued. Those would actually be glued in here. So that would mean either turning on my glue pot, or I could easily just turn on my big glue gun here. And then adding, you know, just cutting the stems on things, like some flowers or something like that could go in there, or some hearts that can go in there. I think I have like these. They're actually heart ornaments, and so then those, like this one may go right in here. And I think I have them in red and pink. So then one could kind of go in here and just kind of place them in, and so they would get actually glued in into here, along with the heart stems and the roses. So once I go through and I add those, then I'll post a picture of the finished product. But like I said, if you were making, just following this, and you know, if this was all you did, this would be a great wreath to hang on your door. So I think that's going to be it. Still not sleepy yet, but probably need to go to sleep because I have to wake up and go to work in the morning. So yeah, my son said boo for work, but yeah, I've got to go to work in the morning. So with that, we're going to call it a night. Thank you for everyone that joined as well. So I greatly appreciate it. For everyone that liked, if you liked the content that you just saw, because I'm going to do this a lot more, which is making wreaths during my lives. If you like what you saw, then you know, subscribe, like my channel, follow it. You can like this live, share it. Yeah, so thanks. And so good night to everyone else, and hopefully tomorrow everyone has a great day. Thank you for joining. Again, here's our close to finished product of our wreath here. Yep. Thanks for joining.